So since our last podcast, realignment, there's 4 teams left in the Pac-12. Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State go to the Big 12, and Oregon and Washington, USC and
Yeah.
UCLA, of course, went to the Big 10.
Yeah.
So now the Pac-12 is Cal, Oregon State, Stanford, and Washington State.
It's so sad.
It
Look
is
at the
sad.
4 of them down there.
Especially because the on-the-field product from the Pac-12 this year is going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be some pretty good football. But going forward after this year, any team that calls themselves a Pac-12 team is screwed, basically. And it's unfortunate because, one of the things that sort of made college football great and interesting is the regionality aspect of college football, is the fact that for a long time they played a certain type of football in the West Coast, and they played a certain type of football in the South and in the North and in the Midwest. And now it just seems like they are really gearing things up for the NCAA to be no more, and for college football to be governed by itself and to be a factory for NFL players, essentially.
Yeah, it already
But
is.
yeah,
I like that we're on the right side of things, because right now there's only 3 conferences really that are really set up for long-term success. If you look at things like the SEC has brand power, and like just the amount of brand power they have in there, especially now with Oklahoma and Texas, they're geared up for long-term success. The Big Ten has been really great about adding schools that will bring them more money. Even the Big 12 took the group of 5 schools that had the most money and the most attention behind them, and they brought them in. And then they, with their additions from the Pac-12, they're set up. So, but the ACC is just, it's falling behind. It's the next Pac-12 disaster waiting to happen.
yeah.
So if you're going to consolidate those into the big 3, I don't mind that, really. I don't. It's going to cause a little bit more scheduling nightmare, and they might have subdivisions within those.
Oh, I have a really controversial but good idea that will solve that problem. Super controversial. Very good. Look at this this page right here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams on this page, and you look at, which teams are in which conferences. It's like in every conference there's team for about 4 or 5, 6 teams, even in the mega conferences, that are like big brand names, going to be good teams year in and year out. And then there's some that are not like the others. Well, in Europe, if your team isn't very good, there's a thing called relegation. And relegation is when you go to a lesser league because you're not up to snuff with everybody else. So why is Vanderbilt still in the SEC if SEC is the best conference? Why is Indiana and Northwest? I mean, like, when it does relegation come? That's my question, because that would solve a lot of scheduling issues.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right to a point. It would have to be like strictly football, though. Like,
it all should be strictly football. I don't know why. That's the other thing that a lot of people have mentioned. I don't know why you're moving all of Oregon athletics to the Big Ten, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
move Oregon football to the Big Ten.
Can you imagine the headaches this is going to cause for basketball? How many games those people play? Like,
forget basketball, like men's water polo. You know what I mean? Those types of sports. Basketball will be just fine because at most places it financially supports itself. Yeah, exactly. That's the point. They are financially supported by the other sports. All those small sports, they're financially supported by basketball and football at all these schools. So, I mean, if it gets to a point where the financial burden of moving all across the country is too hard, they might have to start cutting things, and Title IX is going to get involved, and it's going to get really messy. So the idea that every athletic program of all these schools just need to be under one umbrella, and they all need to be playing the same conference, that's an archaic idea, because football and basketball are completely different from all the other sports. They make so much more money. Hell, even college baseball doesn't make that much money. From what I understand, most college baseball programs are about even with their with money in and out of their program. It's an interesting time for sure. From a Nebraska perspective in the Big Ten, recruiting wise, it does make some interesting conversation, because now you have all the West Coast brands, all of the ones you would want from the West Coast. Now you play them every year, because guess what? We had an entire segment where we talked for like 30 minutes on our podcast, 2 months ago about the new schedules that just came out, 2024, 25. Well, guess what? They just threw a wrench in that because Oregon and Washington are joining in 2024. They're joining after this season. So now they got to go back to the drawing board. And what's going to happen in Nebraska? Well, Nebraska is the closest Big Ten team to all of those schools, which means most likely we're going to be in a pod with those dudes. Like, we're going to be playing them all the time. So to be completely honest, I'm very happy because all of those West Coast schools, like, I respect them. Nebraska has been terrible. So from my perspective, if you're not a Nebraska fan, this will sound terrible. But I'd rather play them than play some of the Big Ten powers on the other side because of the type of football they play. And because, I'd almost rather play them.
Fair. But, I mean, so this is already gone. But I thought about this the other day. Can you imagine if we were even halfway decent with, like, when we went off into, like, the divisions? Like, with the teams we got paired up with, they wanted us to be that person in that slot, like the Wisconsin or Nebraska. They wanted that to be the thing, and we just couldn't do it.
You take the roster and coaching staff of the Bo Pelini 2008 through 2012 years, and you move that up to be 2014 through, or to be 2011 through 20. You know what I mean? You move that up to where Sue hits his peak in 2012.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, dude, history's different. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, history's different.
It absolutely is. But
those are the types of questions that keep me up at night.
Yeah, that's what I think about too. And then when you're adding these schools, and it's like we have to get our house in order soon, or we're gonna be the next Vanderbilt.
Absolutely. That is the abyss.
There's a couple schools in the Big Ten that are still well below us, like, and then financially, most of them, minus, the Ohio States and, Michigan, Penn State, like those were financially kind of right there. But there's like Indiana and Illinois, Maryland.
Let's just put it this way. The FPI, like the Football Power Index, they come out with like a ranking every week, and it's like the power rankings and all that stuff. So if you took like an FPI power ranking for like all of college football history, Nebraska is like objectively the third best team in the Big Ten. Objectively. Yep. Like third, you could maybe make an argument they're fourth or second. Because Ohio State is probably objectively ahead. Same with probably USC.
Yeah.
And then besides them, it's like Penn State or Michigan or Nebraska. You know what I mean? And it's looking at like what they've actually accomplished, it's probably Nebraska. So we're still up there, even in this conference. And that's the thing we have to keep reminding people. We have been down. People have been getting off easy playing us. They have been getting off easy. Nebraska is a sleeping giant with so much fan support.